Hello and welcome back to the Azure DevOps course. In this lecture, we'll explain the environments in YAML pipelines. So what's an environment? The environment is a very powerful feature in the YAML pipelines that enables you to logically group your set of resources that you deploy to. So if you are deploying to a staging virtual machine or deploying to production virtual machine environment, you can define an environment resource for your staging VM and the environment resource for your production VM. And simply, when you write your YAML pipeline, choose to deploy to the production VM in the YAML pipeline, and it deploys to your VM without giving any service connection. And you can trace the deployment in the environments. So if we go here in environments, here when you create an environment, you can go and check all the deployment history on that environment. So if you have a production environment, you can go and see all the deployment jobs that have run on this production environment. So you can trace all the deployment history. Also, you can see the changes, the get commit changes. You can see all the changes in the get commit, and if it's linked to a work item in the Azure boards, you can trace the work items and trace the get commit changes. So the environment is like a deployment group in the classic pipelines, but the environment feature is only available for the YAML pipelines. It's used only in the YAML pipelines. Also, a great feature of the environments is that you can apply the pre-deployment approvals and checks when you deploy to a specific environment. So you can pause the deployment to someone must approve the deployment before it proceed with it. So it will be paused until someone approve it to continue. This is a type of approval. Also, there is a lot of types of checks and approvals, like a template extend. It checks if there is a specific template is extended in your pipeline, or a branch control check. It checks if this deployment is done from a specific branch. So if you are making the deployment from the main branch and the branch control was configured that you must deploy from the dev branch, the deployment will fail. So you can use multiple pre-deployment approval and checks. You can trace all your deployment history and get commit changes and work items. So it's a very powerful feature in Azure DevOps. So now we'll try to make three environments: prod environment, dev environment, and QA environment. So I will go with create environments. I will name the first one prod, and here we can link this environment with two types of resources: Kubernetes resource or a virtual machine resource. And when you link it with a Kubernetes or a virtual machine resource, when you link this environment with your pipeline, you don't have to write the service connection. It consumes the service connection from this environment directly. But now in this demo, we'll use a non-resource. So now it will be a logical environment that is not linked to any resource. So why will you use a non-resource environment? You can do this so you can have advantage of all the environment features like traceability and pre-deployment approvals and check and environment security control. So you can benefit also from making a non-resource environment. So I will create a prod environment that's a non-resource environment. It's not linked to Kubernetes cluster or a virtual machine. I will proceed with creating it. So now I created the prod environment. All the deployment jobs will appear here under the deployment tab, and here it is the approvals and the checks. So now by default, any environment that you have created is restricted to be used by any pipeline. So to make this environment has open access for all the pipelines, we'll click here in the security and click in more actions tab and make it open access. Now any pipeline can use this environment. So I'll create now the dev and the QA environment. Dev environment, and do the same. So now I have created the three environments: the dev and prod and QA environment. So now I have created a demo pipeline to see how we can use a multiple stage pipeline to use these three environments. So that's the pipeline I have created for the environment demo. So let's go and see it. This pipeline consists of 4 stages. First, this is the build stage. It echoes some scripts and publish artifacts using pipeline artifacts. Then here the dev stage. This dev stage in the jobs key, instead of writing job, we write deployment. So here we specify that this is a deployment job. When you specify a deployment job, you specify the environment that it will be deployed in. So here we specify the dev environment. So now we can see this deployment job with the name dev deploy in the dev environment. So after the pipeline runs, we can go to the dev environment and see the dev deploy job. So that's how you specify the environment in deployment job. Then that's the strategy. Here you can specify a strategy to deploy to your resources. So for example, if you are having a virtual machine resource, you can specify run once The run once means that it will deploy to all the virtual machines in this environment in one time. But you can specify another strategies like rolling strategy. Rolling strategy will make it deploy to virtual machines one after another, not all in the same time. And there is also a canary strategy. So now we are using an empty environment without any resource. So we will go with run once, then deploy, and here we write the steps like any normal job. So here it's only a normal script with echo. So that's how you write a deployment job that will appear in your environment. So here if you are using an environment that is linked with a Kubernetes resource, we can use the Kubernetes task without giving it a service connection. It will automatically authenticate with the Kubernetes namespace using the environment you specified. It will consume the environment service connection. Okay, so here I made a stage for dev that uses the dev environment, has a deployment job that uses the dev environment, and here I make a QA stage that has a deployment job that uses the QA environment, and in the same way I made a prod stage that has a deployment job that uses the prod environment, and all the stages has a script that have a normal echo. So let's try and run. Here the deployment job to the dev environment has finished. If you noticed here, it downloaded the artifact, the pipeline artifact, but we didn't write any task that downloads the artifact. But by default, if you are publishing artifact in a previous stage, when you make an deployment job, it automatically download the pipeline artifact. So here in the dev, it automatically downloads the artifact. So the deployment jobs automatically download the artifacts if you have published it in a previous job. So that's also a powerful feature in the environments. It downloads the artifact automatically if you have published it in a previous jobs. So all the environment stages, the dev environment and the QA and the prod, had downloaded the artifact. So now let's return to the environment section here and see the deployment history tracking for each environment. So if we go to the dev environment, we can see here our deployment runs. So that's the last run, and that is the dev deployment job. We can see all the deployment history here, and if you click on it, you can see your deployment job. And also you can see the code changes here. If you click on the changes, it will list you the commit history to see the changes. And if the commit is linked to a work item, you can see the work items here, the Azure Boards work items. So you have a full traceability for your deployment jobs, for your get changes, work items. So that's from the strong features of the Azure DevOps environments. Also, there is something you can make in the environment. You can create the environment from inside the pipeline. So if I return back to the pipeline, if I come here before the prod and made another stage that I called it UET, that depends on the QA, and made the prod depends on the UET. So now this UET stage uses environment UET. But if you go here in the environments, we don't have UET environment. But if we used the UET environment from inside the pipeline, even if it is not created and only saved, if I saved here, I will only save and return back to the environment and refresh, it will be automatically created. The UET environment is automatically created by only writing it in the pipeline. By only writing environment UET in the pipeline and saving, it will be automatically created. An environment UET with empty resources. If you click on it, it doesn't have any resource and it's created automatically. But also we must give all the pipelines access to it so the pipelines can use it. You must go to the security and make it open access so the pipeline can use it. So that's also from the environment features. If you type it in the pipeline, even before creating it, it will be created automatically. And now we can run again. So now the pipeline have finished and it deployed to all the 4 environments, the dev and the QA and the UET. Returning back, now the UET had a deployment job deployed to it. Okay, so now I will explain a very strong feature in the environments, which is the approvals and the checks. If you go in the prod environment, for example, and click on approvals and checks, and click on the add button here, we have a lot of types of approvals and checks that we can use. We have the branch control to allow to the deployment based on the branch linked to the run. So we can restrict the deployment to production from any other branch other than the main branch. So we can make a restriction in the branch. we can make an artifact evaluation. This artifact evaluation is available only for the container images. So you can make a policy for your container images to, for example, to have a specific base image to be built from inside the Azure pipelines. So you can use this check before the deployment job proceed. Also, you have a required template check. This check will ensure that your pipeline extended a specific template so the deployment job can proceed. If you don't extend the template, the job will fail. So it checks if you are using a specific template here in this check. And here you have the pre-check approvals. These approvals will pause your deployment until someone in your organization approves the deployment so it can continue. So if you click next here, we can add a user that is the only one who can approve the deployment so it can continue and deploy in your job. So that is the approvals. We have made the approval in the classic pipeline section when you have made a pre-deployment approval for deploying on the app service production stage. So that is similar to it. For deploying to the production environment, the approver here, if we choose Muhammad Osama must approve the deployment so it can continue. So that is the pre-check approval. Also the business hours. This business hour check ensures the deployment is started in a specific time window. So if we click next, we can choose the time window that the deployment can work into. So we can make the deployment work only on this days, on this start time and end time. So if you make the deployment job in another time window than this, it will pause. It will pause until we are inside this time window. So that's the business hour check. And you can also make an invoke Azure function check. So it will invoke an Azure function before running your deployment. Also, you can invoke a RESTful API before running your deployment. So you can check if this API request returns success before making your deployment. So it's a very powerful feature, the approvals and the checks in Azure DevOps environment. So we can make a demo now. For example, we can start with the pre-check approvers and make only Muhammad Osama can approve for this deployment. So now if I run the pipeline again, when it tries to deploy in the production environment, it will ask me for approval. And only the user Muhammad Osama can approve the deployment. If we return back and run the pipeline, and here it finished the deployment to the dev and the QA and UAT stage. But in the prod, it is waiting. It has one check in progress. So that is the approval. If we click here, now I can approve and give a comment so the deployment to the production can proceed. So I can approve or reject. So after I approved, now it will continue. And now after my approval, the deployment to production has run and finished. So that's our first type of approvals and checks. We can return back to the environment. In the prod environment, in the approvals and checks, we can add another check. Like for example, the branch control. You can allow only the deployment to this environment to continue only if our run is linked to a specific branch. So for example, the main branch. So now, if I have run the pipeline from another branch, for example, the dev branch, the prod environment deployment will fail. So let's create this approval. So now after adding the branch control check, both the branch control and the pre-check approval will be checked after one another. And that's the check execution order. First, it will check the branch, then it check the pre-check approval. So we can remove the pre-check approval now, or also we can disable it. It will be available but disabled, so only the branch control is enabled. And we can go to our repo, and I will create a dev branch, and return back to the pipeline, and try to run the pipeline from the dev branch. So now it should deploy to all the stages environments except the prod, because the prod had a branch control check that will deploy only if the run is from the main branch. So we will wait until it tries to deploy to the prod environment. So now when it tries to deploy to the prod environment, the check failed. So if we click on the check now, click on it, in the logs here, we see that here the allowed branches is the main branch, but the branch here is the dev branch. So the evaluation is unsuccessful. The check is failed because we are running the pipeline from the dev branch and only the allowed branch is the main branch. So the check is failed and the deployment to the production environment is failed. So that is the branch control pre-deployment check. If we return back to the prod environment, we can disable the branch control check and try another new check. I will try the business hour check. So today is Sunday, and here the Sunday and Saturday is not included in our business time window. So if I try now to run the pipeline, it will wait until we are on Monday on this start time, so it can continue our deployment. So I will try and create this check and go to the pipeline and run it again. So here when it goes to the production deployment stage, it is waiting and the check is in progress. If we click on it, business hours in progress. If we click on it again, here the check evaluation failed because the business hours is defined in these days and this start time, and the Sunday is not included in these days. So it will wait until we are on Monday and we are on this start time, so it can continue. So if you noticed now, it didn't fail, but it is waiting. It is waiting for the business hours time window. So that is the business hours pre-deployment check. So now I return back. So I will disable it. And our last approval and check demo, we will make a demo for the required template pre-deployment check. So here the required template pre-deployment check ensures that your pipeline extends one or more YAML templates. So we'll specify a YAML template and our pipeline must extend it, so the deployment to this specific environment will continue. It will fail if we didn't extend this template. So I will click next. And now we must add our template. So I have created a template that includes our deployment jobs in the templates repo. If we go here in the templates repo, I have created a template file, environment template YAML. This includes our environment pipeline. So when I extend the template, it will include all our stages. That is the environment template. It includes all our stages. And I will use it here in the pre-deployment extend template check. The pipeline will check if this template is extended so the deployment job can proceed. And now I will commit this file, copy its name, and here I will write the path inside templates folder / this file, and the repository. You must write the project name / the repo name. So the project name is Azure DevOps course. I will copy the project name / the repo name is templates-repo. And the ref, that is the branch of the templates repo. I made it to be main branch. So now we can add the required template check. So it will check if this template is extended before the deployment to the prod environment can proceed. So I will create the pre-deployment check and we will go to the environment pipeline here, and instead of writing the stages here, I will comment it and extend the template. So here I have commented all the stages and find an external repo for our templates repo. Then I write the extended keyword. This extended keyword is used to extend a template that will be used in all of our pipeline. So all of our pipeline will be extended from a template. So you write the extended keyword, then the template. So all of our pipeline will be extended from a template. And then write the template's path at the repo alias. So now if we validate and save and try to run the pipeline, it should make a check for the template and the check will pass. And now the deployment to prod check has passed. If we click here, the required template check has passed because we have extended our template in the pipeline. So that's all for this lecture. We have explained environments in Azure DevOps, how to use them in the YAML pipelines, how to create them, how the environment is used to trace your deployment jobs history and your Git committed changes, and see all the type of resources that we can link with the environments. And we have also seen the powerful features of the pre-deployment checks and approvals, and made a demo for 4 types of approvals: the branch control, the pre-check approval, and the business hours check, and the required template check. So in the next lecture, we will create an environment and link it with a Kubernetes resource and make a stage for our .NET Core application. This stage will deploy our .NET Core application to the environment we created. So that will be in the next lecture. So I hope you enjoyed and see you in the next lecture.